Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyate Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhuvya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So Hare Krishna, dear devotees, dear Prabhujis, we are reading from Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 2, contents of the Gita summarized. In our last session we read the 54th verse, now we are going to read the 55th verse. So another very beautiful verse. Lord Shri Krishna, he is replying to the question of Arjunji, and he says, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parth Manogatan Atmani Eva Atmana Tushtaha Sthit Pragyas Tadochyate. So very beautiful verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parth Manogatan Atmani Eva Atmana Tushta Sthit Pragyas Tadochyate. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Prajahati Yada Kaman Sarvan Parth Manogatan Atmani Eva Atmana Tushta Sthit Pragyas Tadochyate. So Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Prajahati gives up, yada when, kaman, desires for sense gratification, sarvan, of all varieties, partha, O son of pritha, manahagatan, of mental concoction, atmani, in pure state of the soul, eva, certainly, atmana, by the purified mind, tushtaha, satisfied, Sthit pragyaha, transcendentally situated, tada, at that time, uchyate, is said. The blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parth manogatan atmani eva atmana tushtaha sthita pragyas taduchyate. When a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So in the purport, Swami Srila Prabhupada explains, he writes, the Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all the good qualities of the great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendentally situated has no good qualifications, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoctions. Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desire manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped. But if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation. For this devotional service will instantly help one on the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. Such a transcendently situated person has no sense desire resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. So very beautiful verse. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parth manogatan. So in the previous verse, Arjunji asked about the symptoms of a person who is samadhisthasya sthit pragyasya. So one who is situated in divine consciousness, because Lord Shri Krishna, he himself explained about divine consciousness, about samadhi, about the state of samadhi, about the state of trance, when one is where in that state one is completely free from material desires and one do not act for fruitive results. One only and only act for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, Nishkam Karm. One engages himself in devotional service for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. But to act in that state, a divine consciousness is required. And that state is the state of Samadhi or the state of Krishna consciousness. Because one can attain full Samadhi only when one is completely realized in all the aspects of the Absolute Truth. Even the personal aspect of the Supreme Absolute Truth, that Absolute Truth has a personality, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one who has realized all the aspects can only be situated in he can only be situated in full Samadhi. So Arjunji, in the previous verse, he asked Lord Shri Krishna, what are the symptoms? Now very beautifully, one by one, in the verses, Lord Shri Krishna is going to describe about the symptoms. So the very first symptom Lord Shri Krishna is describing, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parth manogatan. Prajahati, one who has given up kaman, desires which arise from mental concoction. Sarvan, all varieties of desires. So it is the activities of the mind are explained in the scriptures. The mind is always engaged in thinking, feeling and willing. The mind thinks something, thinks of an object, and because of that thinking, because of that concoction, mental concoction, one develops affection for that object or for that thing. So mental concoction is the cause of all material sense desires. So thinking, feeling, willing, and one after developing feelings or affection for something, the soul or the person, he start desiring that thing. So desires are generated, the desires for sense gratification are generated because of mental concoction, and it will be explained by Lord Shri Krishna in the forthcoming very beautiful verses. Lord Shri Krishna, he will explain, Dhyayato Vishyan Pumsam Sangaste Supajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama. So how desires are generated? So all material desires or desires on material platform, till the soul is on the material platform, one do not have divine consciousness. So the mind is always working, and because of that mental concoction, thinking, mind is always engaged in thinking. So thinking, feeling, willing. So Lord Shri Krishna, he is explaining, Prajahati yada kaman, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desires, sarvan, all varieties, because of mental concoction, so many varieties of sense desires they generate in the body. So when a person gives up all varieties of sense desires, sarvan, kaman sarvan. So Lord Shri Krishna, he is explaining to Arjunji, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parth manogatan, which are generated by the mind, which are all those desires are because of mental concoction, manasijam. Shastras, they explain, everything is manasijam is because of mental concoction, because of mental speculation. Atmani eva atmana, And when the mind is satisfied in the soul, Atmani eva Atmanaha, Atmani, in the pure state of the soul, in the pure state of the soul. When mind finds satisfaction in the soul, but mind can find satisfaction in the soul, or one can find satisfaction in himself only when one has realized his eternal state, which is pure state. So Atmani, in the pure state of the soul. So when one has realized that he is related with the Supreme Lord, with the Super Soul, then only the mind can find satisfaction in the self. When one has realized that he is related with the Supreme Lord, or when the self understands well that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Self, and it is his duty to serve the Supreme Self, then the mind finds satisfaction in the self. So Atmani eva Atmana Tushtaha. When his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, so Lord Shri Krishna is describing Arjunji, Atmani eva Atmana Tushtaha Sthita Pragyasya Tadochyate. Sthita Pragyasya, transcendentally situated, Tada, at that time Uchyate is said. He is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So those who are Sthita Pragya, they have given up. Those who give up, those who completely give up all sense desires which arise from mental concoction, they can be said to be situated in transcendental consciousness or divine consciousness or Krishna consciousness, the state of samadhi, when the state in which one act only for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Supreme Lord, understanding well that one is eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. So prajahati yada kaman sarvan parth, the very first symptom Lord Shri Krishna has explained. One who has given up all sort of material sense desires which arise from mental concoction, prajahati yada kaman sarvan parth manogatan atmani eva atmana tushtaha, and he is satisfied in himself, atmani eva atmana tushtaha, atmana with pure mind, atmani in pure state of the soul, eva certainly, atmana by the purified mind. So in that state the mind is purified, and such purification is possible only when one engages in devotional service, or when one engages in Krishna consciousness, because it is the duty of the mind to think, feel and will. So when one engages himself in Krishna consciousness or activities, sadhana bhakti or bhakti yoga or buddhi yoga, karma yoga, so yoga is done to achieve samadhi. So when one engages in yoga, when one engages in karma yoga, when one engages in buddhi yoga with transcendental intelligence, consciousness, then one can attain that state of samadhi, because the mind automatically then starts thinking, feeling and willing in a different way. He starts thinking for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. He starts thinking, feeling and willing. So whole shift of thinking, feeling and willing takes place, and hence the mind is also purified. So that's why Swami Srila Prabhupada, he is writing in the purport that one has to engage in activities pertaining to Krishna consciousness, or one has to engage in sadhana bhakti. Then only it is possible. It is not possible to totally stop the activities of the mind, and hence it is very, very difficult to stop the sense desires on the material plane, on the material platform. But when one engages on the spiritual platform, on the transcendental platform, when one starts engaging himself in activities of devotional service or activities of Krishna consciousness, then one can slowly, gradually one can attain that state. Those activities or those devotional activities done on the transcendental plane, they gives one strength, and the sense desires, they automatically subside. They naturally subside. It is not possible, Swami Srila Prabhupada wrote in the purport. So it is not possible. Artificially, such sense desires cannot be stopped. But if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for this devotional service will instantly help one. Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing, for this devotional service will instantly help one on to the platform of transcendental consciousness. The devotional service itself help one to attain that divine consciousness. So Swami Srila Prabhupada, in the beginning of the purport, he explained that those who are engaged in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, they have all good qualities. Yasya asti, Srimad Bhagavatam confirms this. Srimad Bhagavatam affirms this. And in the previous purports also Swami Srila Prabhupada explained that. Yasya asti bhakti bhagavati akinchanaha sarver gunes tatra samasate suraha. So one who is engaged in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, he has all good qualities of the demigods, of the great sages. But one who is not engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, harav abhaktasya kuto mahadgunat manorathena asti dhavato bahihi. He is only one who is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord, or one who is not engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord. Because service to the super self is eternal occupation of the self. And when self is engaged in the service of the super self, the mind can find satisfaction in the self. Otherwise, mind will hover on the externally and will seek happiness in material sense gratification. So unless self is engaged in the service of the super self, unless a person is engaged in the service, in the devotional service of the Supreme Being, till then the mind will not find satisfaction in the self. So one has to engage. That's why Swami Srila Prabhupada said one has to engage in actions of devotional service. And such actions which are done with intelligence under the directions of a bona fide representative of the Supreme Lord, spiritual master, they are known as sadhana bhakti. They train oneself. Sadhan, that's why such devotional activities are known as sadhana bhakti. They help one attain that divine consciousness. So one who wants that divine consciousness, that is also possible only when one engages in the acts of sadhana bhakti. So the Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all good qualities of the great sages, whereas a person who is not transcendently situated has no good qualification. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahadgunat manorathena asti. He is situated on the chariot of the mind. As mind dictates, one keep on acting in the life, and sometimes people in the end of their life, they repent, oh, I should have done that, I should have done that, I should not have done that, I should have better done that thing. And because of those desires, one again take another material body. Unless one is completely satisfied in this material world, he keeps on changing bodies. He is given, he is gifted another body by the material nature, and thus one continues in the cycle of birth and death. So manorathena asti, one is situated manorathena asti dhavato bahi, and one is just externally bahihi, one is hovering on the mental plane, and on the mental plane one is only working for varieties of material sense gratification on behalf of mental concoction. So, whereas a person who is not transcendently situated has no good qualification because he is sure to be taking refuge. Such a person take refuge in his own mental concoction. So, because Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoction. So again and again, mind, it is the duty of the mind keep on speculating, concocting, and one, if the self is not engaged in serving the Supreme Self, then mind do not find satisfaction in the self. Atmani eva atmanaha is not possible. Atmani eva atmana is not possible for a person who is not engaged in devotional service. But one who is engaged in devotional service, he finds satisfaction in himself. Even if he is a pauper, even if he has nothing, no possessions, then also if one do not have any material possession, then also such a person who is in divine consciousness, who is transcendently situated, one who has realized himself as an eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord, he finds satisfaction in himself. And he is always satisfied. He is naturally satisfied and he is not disturbed, or he do not have any longing for any petty. Swami Srila Prabhupada used the word petty materialism. He do not have any material desires. So, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoction, so consequently it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kinds of sense desires manufactured by mental concoction. Artificially, such desires cannot be stopped. But if one is engaged in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desires subside without extraneous efforts. Therefore, one has to engage himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for devotional service will instantly help one on the platform of transcendental consciousness. The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. So those who are highly developed, Swami Srila Prabhupada is writing, the highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself. Atmani eva atmana. Such transcendently situated person has no desire resulting from petty materialism, and materialism do not affect him. He do not have any. He is not affected. Even though he may be a pauper, he may have no material possessions, but still he is completely satisfied, he is completely happy, he is completely peaceful. And such a transcendently situated person has no sense desire resulting from petty materialism. Rather, he remains always happy in his own natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. So that state of mind is possible, that divine consciousness is possible only when one gives up all sense desires which arise from mental concoction. That's why Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, he explained the very first symptom. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan, all varieties of sarvan parth manogatan, which arise from mental concoction, manasijam, manorathena asti. Everybody in this material world, they are sitting on the mental chariot of their mind, and the mind is taking them sometimes here, sometimes there. Whole life one does one occupation, and in the end he thinks, I should have better done that. I am not satisfied. So those who are on the mental platform, they are never satisfied. They never find satisfaction in the self. But those who are engaged in devotional service, or when self is engaged in the service of the super self, then mind finds satisfaction in the self. Then mind is completely satisfied, and mind starts thinking in that way. Mind is purified. Mind also starts thinking for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. Mind also starts feeling and willing in Krishna consciousness. So when one's mind is purified, when one's mind is in Krishna consciousness, when one is situated in trance, the mind also starts working in its purified state. That is the purified state of the mind. So to attain that divine consciousness, Swami Srila Prabhupada has urged all of us that one has to engage in Krishna consciousness without hesitation. So one should not hesitate, and one should take up the process of sadhana bhakti, by which mind will get purified and one will be free from all sense desires without any extraneous efforts. Naturally one will be free from sense desires, and all material sense desires will become petty. All materialism, one will not be attracted towards materialism. One will only and only have attraction for Krishna consciousness, for the service of the Supreme Lord. So that divine consciousness, sthita pragyas tadochyate, at that time he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. O Partha, when a man gives up, the blessed Lord said, Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the blessed Lord said, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of sense desire which arise from mental concoction, and when his mind finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan parth manogatan atmani evam atmana tushtaha sit pragyas taduchyate. So very, very beautiful verse. In our next session, we will see how Lord Shri Krishna will explain the other symptoms of a person who is situated in samadhi. Samadhisthasya sthita pragyasya. So with this, I would stop here. In our next session, we'll take the next verse and we'll try to understand it through the beautiful purport of Swami Srila Prabhupada. So Jai Vishnupad Paramhans Parivrajacharya Shrotrashat Shri Srimati Divine Grace Abhay Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ji ki Jai. All glories to His Divine Grace, Krishna Kripa Murti Abhay Charnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Lord Shri Krishna, all glories to Bhagavad Gita, all glories to Lord Chaitanya, all glories to Holy Name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna.